am interviewing Richard Dick A. Grum. Grum is spelled G-R-U-M, at the Withee Public Library, Withee, Wisconsin. The date is August 17th, 2016, and I am Louise Rasmussen-Oshevsky. We will be talking about Dick's early life in Withee and his adventures after that. Would you start by telling us about your parents and your early life, Dick?
Okay. My parents were Antone and Josephine Grum. I was born February 1, 1935 in Waukegan, Illinois. And of course, when I was 7 years old, we moved to a farm up near Longwood. And I thought my father was a little bit mentally unbalanced because the farm didn't have any electricity and it didn't have any bathroom. And of course we moved from Waukegan, Illinois that had all the amenities. My father was an immigrant. He came from Europe, came from Slovenia, and he taught me a great deal about the real world because he was a very smart man. He only had a fourth grade education, and when you put a premium on education, we make a mistake doing that because life experience is a lot more significant than education. I've acquired a couple of university degrees, which don't mean anything at all, but nothing significant anyway. My siblings were Lillian Grum, and she was born in 1928, and my sister Phyllis, who was born in 1938. We moved to Longwood in 1942. We were the third farm on the west side coming up Highway 73 from Longwood. From 1945 to 51, I went to Greenwood High School because we lived in Greenwood. But in 51, we moved back out to the farm, and I attended Withee High School. And I still get to the reunions because I really enjoy seeing some of the old codgers like myself. Fortunately, they're all dying off. As far as I can ascertain, there's only 16 of the 32 in the graduating class that are still around. So the teachers that were special for me in Withee High School were Glenn Brasso, because Glenn Brasso mentored me to go to college. I was not all that oriented to going to college because my father had no education and he wasn't giving me any encouragement to go to college. And the other teacher that I had a lot of respect for was Elaine Leahy. She was an English teacher. After high school, I attended Northland College at Ashland, four-year private institution, and later on, I attended the University of Wisconsin-Stout, where I got a master's degree. After I graduated from college, which was in January of 1960, I worked for Thorpe Finance for a year and a half as an internal auditor. After that, I taught high school for 3 years. Then I spent 25 years as an administrator at Madison Area Technical College. In 1955, because I was doing a rotten job going to college, I was drafted into the Army. I spent 2 years in the Army. After being in the Army for 2 years, I returned to Northland College to get the bachelor's degree. My heart still belongs to the Withee area. I always feel bad when I drive down Highway 73 because back in the good old days, and I think they were good old days, we had farms all the way from Withee to Greenwood. We no longer have farms. Now they're sitting vacant or they're owned by people, but they're not productive the way they used to be. And we used to make a living with 27 cows on 80 acres. You can't do that anymore either. But I guess time marches on. I've been very fortunate. I was married for 5 years, and she didn't poison me. But I have been a bachelor, or whatever. I've been alone for 40 years. I get along much better with my dogs than I do with people anyway. But I've been very privileged because my job allowed me 8 weeks in the summer off, and so I went to other countries and visited educational institutions, and also and I've been to many other countries, including England, Scotland, Yugoslavia, the Netherlands, Russia, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Austria, New Zealand, Australia, and Canada, as well as many exemplary institutions in the United States. My passions were traveling, studying war history, because when I was only 10 years old, the Second World War was over, and guys came home from the war and sat in my dad's bar in Greenwood and talked about their experiences. In my travels internationally, I've been able to talk to individuals that will tell you about the war from a different point of view, their point of view, whether it be German, Japanese, Vietnamese, Russians. In 1975, I was privileged to go to Russia with a bunch of educators. Unfortunately, because of the attitude we have about this country being the only country in the world that's worth a darn, their attitudes were just enough to drive me nuts. I don't like to travel with tour groups because there are people that are very close-minded about what they see. My passions, as I said, were traveling, studying war history, and my dogs. I'm really, really attached to my dogs. I just lost one 2 months ago. He died his heart went bad, and I had to put him down. My really desirable job was working as a U.S. park ranger up in the Apostle Islands, which are up in Lake Superior. I worked for 3 summers up there as a park ranger, and when I do pass on, my ashes are going up to Manitou Island Fish Camp up in the Apostle Islands. I was a park ranger on Manitou Island. There's a fish camp there, and they put me on that thing because they didn't like me telling my stupid jokes to the tourists, because so they put me out on this island, and then I only got I'd get a tour boat that would stop out there with 60 people on it. One of the most interesting things I did, because I really had a lot of corny jokes, and I said the 2 things I can't stand are prejudiced people and English teachers. But anyway, my ashes are going into the apostles, and I believe that my spirit and the spirit of my dogs are going to get along real fine with the ghosts of the old fishermen that were living on that island in 1920. I had more fun because I like little kids. I really find them very refreshing compared to us adults sometimes. And one of the cabins up there was all set up with pewter. It's where the old fishermen stayed. They stayed in that thing back in 1920. And there was a bottle of peach brandy on the table. It was a decoration, kind of. But the kids that came out there, they would ask me if I ever took a nip of the peach brandy, and I said, "Oh yeah." I said, "The ghosts of the old fishermen and I play cards, and we take a little nip out of that peach brandy bottle." After my retirement in 1990, I was actively involved as a driver safety instructor in AARP 55 Alive, as a board member of Compassionate Choices, which is a organization that tried to get physician-assisted departure in Wisconsin, like they have in California. California just approved the law. It started out with Oregon. Unfortunately, there are religious groups and pro-lifers that don't want you to have assisted departure in this state. But I worked very actively for over 20 years on that. Currently, I work for the Dane County Humane Society as a volunteer. We run a can recycling project, which means that people bring their aluminum cans in and we fill a 4-horse trailer with aluminum cans. And the load I took last week we had a total of $42,400 in can revenues. So that's the kind of things I do. For 30 years, every autumn on September 1, I would start growing a beard so that I could play Santa Claus. And for 30 years, I played Santa Claus. In 2011, I traveled with a group of Madison Quakers to Vietnam, where I met some fine people, including my adopted granddaughter, Swote, with whom I remain in touch. It was during this trip that I funded programs in support of the Quakers projects. I'm survived by a sister, Phyllis Gakey of Greenwood, and my adopted granddaughter in Vietnam, and a few good friends. My cremated remains will be interred among the Apostle Islands, which I love, in Lake Superior. In lieu of flowers, memorials may be made in Dick's name to Dane County Humane Society, Planned Parenthood, the Stoughton Food Pantry, Rally for the Cure, or the Women's Medical Fund. Thank you.
You mentioned earlier that you grew up around the Withee area. What did you do for recreation? Did you go to dances someplace, or what did you do for recreation?
When I was a teenager, of course, teenagers are a funny bunch of people. I used to go to, south of Longwood, there was Jackson Hole. Jackson Hole was a dance hall there. And I'd go there, and I'd go to the Silver Dome, which is down near Nailsville, and I'd go to St. Hedwig's for roller skating, which is near Thorpe. And of course there was the Colby Park Pavilion. That was someplace else. Those were the exciting things we had to do when I was a teenager. I was very fortunate. My father was very good to me. In 1951, when we moved back to the farm at Longwood, he got a brand new 51 DeSoto, which I did a pretty good job of trying to wear the wheels off of. But in fact, one of the things I probably shouldn't mention, but is that most of the guys in Withee High School after the basketball game would drive 30 miles to find a gravel pit that they could make out in. And of course, if you saw that 51 DeSoto was sitting in the school parking lot with all the windows steamed up.
So you enjoyed your life as a teenager then?
I enjoyed my life, and like I said, Glenn Brasso was a real mentor. I really respected the man. Mike Fritsch, 3 weeks before I graduated from high school, I was up in the projection booth. I was an athletic manager, and I was up in the projection booth behind the gymnasium. And Lynn Hatzel was one of my classmates, gave me a cigarette. And I smoked it, and the smell filtered down on the gym floor. And Mrs. Fritsch, one of the students, told Mrs. Fritsch, and I got kicked out of school for 3 weeks before graduation, which did not make my father very happy. But Mike Fritsch sat me down, and he explained that I was a no good, that I was probably going to never amount to a damn thing. And that was kind of, I still remember it, but I always wanted to stop and see Mike, because I don't think Mike even have to have a master's degree for what he did back in those days. But I didn't hold it against the man, but it was not a nice thing to say to a kid. But that's the way it goes. No,
Did they have dances in school?
Oh yeah, we had dances there. We also used to sing the school song at basketball games. Only we didn't sing it. It wasn't send out a cheer for old Withee High. It was we stagger and we never fall. We sober up on wood alcohol. You know, kids do things like that.
You had your own version.
Oh yeah, oh yes, we did.
Now, when you had parties at school, did you have a live band, or did records, or what did you have?
No, you generally had records. You didn't. I did. I was in my last year in school. I was in the concert band with the high school concert band.
What did you play?
I couldn't the bass drum, but it didn't take anything to throw a bass drum, because whenever I was supposed to thump the bass drum, Ronnie Albert, who was a music major later at Superior State College, used to ram his elbow into my ribs, and I'd know I was supposed to hit it. I should mention one other thing. Mike Fritsch made a big deal of my smoking, and it was a stupid thing to do, but kids aren't always using the brain. But we had 3 students that were hot dogs in the class, either jocks or Ron Albert's dad was a school board member. And they used to, with Buzz Grollo was the band man, they'd go down the basement and smoke in the high school. And I always got a kick out of it, because some of those guys, when I've talked to them later in life, they smoked. I never smoked. I only did that because I was trying to act like a big guy. I still like driving by the old school up here, because I have many memories of what that was. I met my first love there. Before that I was a little bit slow when it came to getting to know young ladies. I didn't learn until I was a junior in high school what that was all about. But she's dead now. She was in my class. She died back in 2012, I think. But other than that...
do you remember when the first time that you voted and who you voted for?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I don't know. I think it would probably be Eisenhower. I would have voted in 1956. I would have voted for Eisenhower. Although I later found out that Eisenhower wanted to drop an atomic bomb on North Vietnam for the French, which doesn't appeal to me, because I think one of the biggest shortcomings this country has is that it gets into wars. The Vietnam War was 8,000 miles away, and they weren't hurting us, but we stuck our nose in it. And it resulted in 2 million people that died in that war, Vietnamese, and 59,000 American soldiers. And so I really wish we wouldn't get involved in going into wars halfway across the world. But the military-industrial complex is a good business, and so that's why we do it. And we will continue to do it. Yes.
See, going back to some first, you mentioned that the 1951 DeSoto.
Don't even know what that is, do you?
A car, yeah.
You know what a 51 DeSoto looks like? They quit making them about 2 years later. But it was a hot machine. Had a slipstick in it. It was one of the first automatic shifting vehicles.
Mm.
And I had a lot of fun with that when I was dating girls up in Withee.
Well, anybody that had a car at that time, I mean, you pretty much could get a date.
Well, yeah, that's the problem. They didn't go with me because they thought I was cute. They went with me because I had a nice car. But that's all right. That's the way it's been all my life, you know.
Whatever works.
Yeah, whatever works.
Now, electricity came into being about 1943. Do you remember when your home got electricity?
We got electricity in 1942 up at near Longwood.
42.
There was electricity out on the road, out on Highway 73. I don't know if you know that the Rural Electrification Association was formed by a guy by the name of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And the power companies didn't even want to service the farmers because they didn't think they could make any money doing it. So they were very unhappy with REA coming in and doing that. But it was a good thing that Franklin Delano Roosevelt did. We got electricity in 42 when we moved from Waukegan, Illinois into the farm up on near Longwood. When the moving van came in the driveway, it got stuck in the driveway, and there was 2 feet of water in the basement on this old house that was abandoned, and there was no bathroom. And I thought my father was stark raving nuts because we had moved from some place that had 3 movie theaters and hard surface roads or streets and indoor plumbing. You know, those were all things I was used to. We used to drink, if you wanted a drink of water at the Longwood State Graded School, there was a tin cup hanging out on the pump, and you pumped yourself a cup of water. We all used the same cup. You wouldn't do that now.
How many students were there in school?
I didn't have a great number. I went to school with Alan Selm, who was a cheese factory in Longwood. His dad ran that. It's only 3/4 of a mile from the farm. And I still know a number of my old high school chums. Kenny Mertens lives down near me, not more than about 5 miles away, and Alan lives about 5 or 6 miles away. Alan is a chiropractor, and and Ramona Stewart, I'm still in contact with her. She lives over in the western part of the state of Wisconsin. And Bill Gerke, there was a Bill Gerke he was an interesting man. In fact, he kind of saved my life one day, because after a basketball game, a guy by the name of Howard Johnson didn't like the idea that I was taking Marilyn Devine home, and he was going to beat me up. And Bill Gerke had boxed Gold Gloves. I don't know if you remember Ray Grippentrog, who was a coach, but Ray Grippentrog, the only guy he wouldn't chew out when he was playing football or basketball was Bill Gerke, because Bill Gerke had been a Golden Gloves boxer and he might get knocked on his tail. So, but I'm still in touch with Bill Gerke. He lives over in Minnesota. So,
lots of happy memories from.
Oh yes, yeah, they were.
Yeah. To what do you owe your longevity?
Living the clean life. No, not really. I owe my longevity, I guess. I actually understand they say that the good die young, so there's a good possibility I may live forever, because I'm not very nice. But my health at 81 years old is better than a lot of people at 81. I have diabetes, and I also have obstructive sleep apnea. But other than that, I'm in fairly good shape yet. I'm not looking to get married again. Once was enough. But anyway.
Any advice that you would give to young people today, if they would listen?
Well, I don't know. I've had a few. I worked as a teacher for many years, and I had students who would ask my opinion. I still give an opinion if we have someone at the local restaurant that doesn't know what to do with their life. I will express an opinion to them and recommend where they go to school, ask them what their interests are, because and hope that they don't make the same mistakes that I did. But other than that, I like young people. In fact, I like them better than I do the old people, because the trouble is that we kind of get so that we got all the answers and we don't need to ask anybody anything. I exercise at the Stoughton Hospital, which is only 4 or 5 miles from my home, and I always pick on Norwegians. I do that not because I'm prejudiced. It's because my dad taught me that it doesn't make any difference what your nationality or race is. We have good and bad in every. I get upset when I hear our presidential candidate that talks about shipping all the Muslims out. But I know a few Catholics and a few Lutherans I'd like to ship out. But anyway, I like young people, and I try to give them the benefit of my life experience. And sometimes they shrug and don't want to even listen to the old guy.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Dick, for participating in our oral history. And you have been one of the best library donors that we have here at the Withee Public Library. And you are a valuable part of our area history, and we thank you for sharing your past with us.
Thank you.